Welcome to Third Man In. I'm Zack Phillips, breaking down Game 3 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, moving to 2-1 on the year following a loss here tonight to the Chicago Blackhawks, 4-1. Ultimately, weird ending. You get two reviews in the final minute. Taylor Hall scores an empty netter, called back on the offside. Austin Matthews scores what would have been his 7th of the season, called back for an offside that happened 45 seconds prior to, and then ultimately sitting at 3-1, the Chicago Blackhawks do finally score an empty net goal to actually make it 4-1, which ends up being the final score here. There's a lot to break down, so we will get to all of that throughout the course of the show here today. Before I do, I seen a lot of people coming over from old channels, from different spots. So if you are from there, if you haven't hit subscribe already, please make sure to hit that subscribe button here on the channel. Every subscription is greatly appreciated. It does help us build back to the community that we had before. So trying to get back to there, so make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications here on this channel. I do appreciate everyone who's come over. I see Taylor Osler in here. Glad to see you in the chat here, so do appreciate that. Appreciate the support. So thank you so much for finding the channel and showing some support here. But make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and let anybody else know that's looking for the channel where we're at here, as we have moved over and started a brand new one. But I mean, we'll get through everything that happened here tonight. I do have some concerns, so if people want to call in, they agree, disagree, whatever it may be with my thoughts here. If you have your own opinions here tonight, please make sure to reach out to me. You can do so on Twitter at ZackPhil. You can also do so via my personal Discord. So you can just reach out to me on there. You can send me a message. I will be happy to send over a link if anyone wants to call in and talk about the game here tonight. Look forward to hearing from people. We'll continue to bring that back like we've had before in the past, with people calling into the show and participating that way. It is a lot of fun to hear from fans and from other Leafs fans about their thoughts on the game, how they're feeling, because I have concerns. Some people maybe don't have the same concerns, but let's start here. We can kind of get through things in somewhat of a chronological order as we go through it, but I do want to just start with the biggest issue that I'm seeing. We saw it in the first two games, and that was, yes, you come away with wins in both of those ones, but you scored 12 goals, and your goal differential after two games of scoring 12 cumulative goals was +3. You score 12, you allow 9 through the first two games. In a lot of circumstances, you don't necessarily have to sit there and panic when you see something like that. But with this Leafs team and where it's at and how we've seen them perform in the past, it is a little bit more of a concerning number because, yeah, you get the offense jumping out right away. We talked about that in the last two streams. It's nice to see them going right from the jump because you don't always have that out of them to start the year. This defense is very... I mean, you always get a slower starting Leafs defense where it takes them a little bit to build. I mean, even last year, look at what we saw. You get a ton of guys go down with injuries, and then when you see people fill in, all of a sudden this team starts to play really well defensively, and you go through that stretch where they were the best defensive team analytically in the NHL. Now, the problem is that they still started slow, then they got the injuries, then they built to that. So maybe they would have been good anyways. Maybe it came out of necessity, whatever it was. But right now, this Leafs D is just not good enough. It was a concern that a lot of people had going into this season, and you saw it through the first two games. I wasn't really ready to panic on it. Obviously, 3 is still a smaller sample size, but it's like, okay, we already had these concerns before the preseason. Then the preseason hit. Then we still had these concerns. Then the preseason finishes, and we're like, all right, well, how are they going to do in the regular season when it's all 6 of them playing together, when you're actually playing against NHL talent, when you're actually playing with your full roster up in front of you? Not good enough. Like, it's just straight up has not been good enough for this Leafs team to start this season, because you see struggles in their own zone, struggles to lock things up defensively there, and then you also just see these breakdowns, whether it be positionally in your own zone or if it's kind of playing guys coming into your own zone. The one that I kind of saw that really, really stood out to me, I mean, we can bring this back. We used to do this before, so we will bring this up here on screen for people to see, but we'll break down. I mean, the one that was very concerning is when you have guys entering the zone. It was on the play where it was on the penalty kill. You have McCabe starts here. You have Liljegren over here, And then you've got essentially Blackhawk, Blackhawk, Blackhawk. Effectively like this. The puck is over on this side, and Liljegren is focusing his attention over here on this guy. Now, as these guys are skating backwards, Liljegren's coming back this way. As the forward comes down, forward driving in the middle, McCabe, for whatever reason, as Liljegren has now moved himself back into here, he's got a forward here, McCabe decides that he is now going to come across and play standing right beside where Timothy Liljegren is. All this does is allow the forwards on this side to just skate right through this open hole. And if this puck first did not come through, he's going to have other options there, because you lose the opportunity of having any type of defensive responsibility over on this side of the ice over here. And there is a massive hole that opens up. Massive hole that opens up onto this other side of the ice. Ultimately, what we end up seeing is going right through. Pass comes in across, and he scores. This was just terrible, terrible, terrible defending. There is no other way to put this other than this is terrible defending. Because at this point in time, you have an opportunity here to kind of slow things down on this penalty kill, keep it at 2-1 at this point in the game, just put an end to this. You are nearly out of this penalty kill, and this has nothing to even do with your penalty kill here. This was completely just garbage play that puts you back when it is a normal situation of what would effectively be a 3-on-2. You turn it into a 3-on-1 because you now have two guys defending the same player at the exact same time. And on top of that, you open up a lane far side for a guy to drive to the net, to receive the pass, and to cut in on your goaltender and now score and make it a 3-1 game. Like, there is just no reasoning for this. That was Jake McCabe who came across. I do not blame Liljegren in that situation. He actually was even stepping up on the guy coming across the blue line, which I think was the right play because they had some back pressure coming through. So you're kind of clogging them up at the blue line. You've got some guys coming back in to help out defensively there. And then it's just Jake McCabe making this egregious decision to move across the ice and try to play the guy there. No point in that. You have to have some type of awareness that you've got a guy there. You have a defenseman there. Trust that guy to do his job. Because if you can't trust the guy playing next to you to do his job, at some point, you don't trust him. You start to play his position. The forward doesn't trust you. He starts to play your position, and things just start to fall off a cliff. You have to have some level of trust when you're on the ice. Yes, you're down a man here. Okay. That should be even more reason to not have to follow over to the other side and play the guy that your defenseman is playing. This just makes no sense. None. This is terrible, terrible decision making. Klingberg had a rough night here tonight. From a defensive perspective, I don't think he was terrible defensively. He just wasn't very good. It was more offensively where you're expecting him to have a contribution to the game, where you're like, hey, you have to do something for us here to help us out, create something, because they were struggling a little bit to actually capitalize. It wasn't necessarily that they were struggling to create tonight. It was more so that they were struggling to capitalize on situations. He wasn't doing that. You're seeing him kind of fumble pucks. You're seeing him make errant decisions, make bad passes that are getting tipped, picked off, whatever it was. It was a struggling play offensively from him where it wasn't being facilitated well enough. We did see him on the power play late there. You're thinking, hey, you're down 3-1. You've got an opportunity with what should be the most lethal power play in the NHL, 4 for 8 through the first 2 games. And John Klingberg just kind of made some bad decisions. Shot some pucks into some legs. Obviously, the one off of Foligno that breaks his blade or knocks his blade out of his skate. There was just some bad decision-making by John Klingberg. Rough night for him, especially offensively. I have concerns, though. Like, Morgan Rielly, you know the saying, they are who they thought they were, who we thought they were. Morgan Rielly is who we thought he is. I'm not really impressed nor unimpressed with Rielly's play to start this season. It is just is what it is. it's the guys around him more so. Brody, fine tonight, still not great, bad first 2 games. Klingberg struggled offensively. Mark Giordano, I don't think he's going to be able to sustain a lot of minutes. I don't really want to get into this conversation again here because we had this conversation in the last show. It was a concern of mine going into the season, but I don't think he can play that many. And then Jake McCabe, I don't think is that great. I think Brad Treliving might need to quickly make an adjustment here on defense. Try to find a way to improve upon this. Allow more defensive players or just better defensive players, whatever it is, to come in alongside of these guys. It's just whatever they've got going on right now, not good enough. This defense is not very good in their own zone, not very good in transition. And another thing here with a defensive side of things is that they were struggling with a third man high here tonight, having that guy in place, which is allowing a lot of odd man opportunities. If you follow Alex Petrielli on Twitter there, does a lot of Leaf writing. You can see he put out some videos here tonight breaking down some of the plays that happened that led to 2-on-1s, breakaways, the Corey Perry breakaway. These are just fundamental breakdowns from a Leaf standpoint of not having a defensive forward high or a forward high in a defensive position in the offensive zone. Now, obviously, you don't want to spend your entire time in the offensive zone playing defense or having to be aware of that, but you do have to remember that you kind of just can't loosey-goosey go out there and play. There has to be some element of protection going back the other way. So being aware of guys on the ice is another thing as well. You see the one with Perry where he gets a breakaway. It's a bad change. Marner comes out late and then doesn't pick up Perry. Perry breaks the zone, gets a tape-to-tape pass, and he's off to the races, and he scores a goal. Like, there was just defensive breakdowns. We know that this team can score goals. They're going to be able to score goals. Can you prevent goals from being scored against you? Right now, the honest answer is no, they can't. 12 through the first 2 games, 4, 9 against, and then you come in here tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. Yes, Connor Bedard. Yes, Taylor Hall. Not a good team. Not very good goaltenders. Not good defense. And I'm not saying this to just completely dump on the Chicago Blackhawks, but the reality is this is a team that was relatively unchanged from what they were last year in terms of any type of actual improvement. And they were the team that won the first overall pick to get Connor Bedard. Like, there was a reason that they got the first overall pick. They're not very good, and it's not necessarily like they're trying to be very good this year. There's no playoff expectations out of these guys. In fact, it's almost better for them if Bedard scores 40 this year and then they get another pick. And yet you come in here and you can't stop them from scoring, which just kind of kills any type of momentum, kills any energy that's going your way, and allows you to get behind in the game flow, start chasing, having to force things, and it just doesn't turn out well. Again, if people do want to call in, say it in the chat. You can also send me a message on Discord. I'm happy to have people call in here as always. If you do want to call in, you don't have it on Discord, you can send me a message on Instagram. You can send me a message on Twitter. I'm happy to send you guys links to take some callers here tonight. So please feel free to reach out if that is something that you are interested in doing. As you know, as people who were in chats before, we do take calls and love hearing people's opinions on the game where people are at. So I'll get through a bunch of things. I see a bunch of questions in the chat or some thoughts in the chat from different people. So I do want to make sure that I address those throughout the show here tonight. So we'll make sure to get to those. Fire away your questions, even if you don't feel like comfortable calling in, if that's not something that you want to do. But another thing for me, I have some concerns with where Mitch Marner has been to start this season. I'm not necessarily the biggest Mitch Marner fan. If you followed along the show over the past couple of seasons, you know that he's kind of the one guy that I've looked at each time and been like, all right, I just need more from him on a more consistent basis. I struggle with some of the attitude stuff that's kind of portrayed out there. And then I was looking around at some tweets tonight, and it wasn't just me that was feeling this way. It was like, I was even looking at this guy I follow who decided this year he was going to be a Leafs fan. He's tweeting out like, why is Mitch Marner acting like this out on the ice? Like, what is this guy doing? Why does he act like this? Why does he do that? Whatever. It's not just me who sees this. I think a lot of people in the chat here have seen this in the past as well. He looks weaker right now. As good as Matthews has come out here, as strong as he's been, as dominant as he looks every single time he's on the ice. Like, I was writing down notes throughout the game here tonight. He legitimately looked like a guy. Every time he was on the ice, he looked like he could score a goal. Austin Matthews here tonight. Some of that is obviously because of how good he is of a shooter, his offensive mind, as well as his defense. But Matthews looks strong, and whether it's strong on his stick, strong in puck battles, it's his skating as well here. Like, even how strong he's been of a skater in years past, it seems like every single thing for him has gotten better this season, and he's carried that through and just continued to develop, and that's what's allowed him to have 6 goals through 2 games and what could have been 7 here tonight through the first 3. Like, he looks like a much stronger, more dominant player who looks like he could be a legitimate threat every single time that he touches the ice. Mitch Marner, for me, has kind of looked pedestrian through the first couple. Now, I know that he's involved in these Matthews goals. I know that there's been some nice plays by him to help set up Matthews or other players who have scored throughout the first couple of games, but reality is where Mitch Marner is at, it's just felt underwhelming. Like, you're sitting alongside a guy who has 6 goals through 2 games, looked lethal all night here tonight, and then he comes out here and he laid an egg. Like, he might have been, in my opinion, the worst player on the ice tonight. John Tavares was pretty good. William Nylander was pretty good. Austin Matthews was pretty good. Mitch Marner struggled. John Klingberg, not great. McCabe, not great. But to me, Mitch Marner, it's like everyone has these expectations of you. You kind of have to live up to them. And it becomes all the more frustrating when you sit here and you look at William Nylander. You realize that every single time this guy's out on the ice, he's increasing value. Like, did he score here tonight? No, he didn't. But he still got 3 goals through the first 3 games. He tacks on another assist here tonight with another highlight reel play. The toe drag at the blue line to get himself in past the defender into the zone. Cuts across and makes a beautiful read and pass over to John Tavares, cutting across the other way and behind him. JT just wide open in the slot, able to get that shot off. Rips top corner. Like, great play by Nylander. And Nylander's value feels like it's continuing to increase and increase every single time he's on the ice here in these first 3 games, almost to the point, like I tweeted out here tonight, sign William Nylander before he leaves the building, because it just feels like each time he goes out on the ice, that contract value just goes up and up and up and up. And he is a guy that I keep sitting here looking at going, that's a guy I want on my team. Yes, there are fundamental flaws in William Nylander's game. We know that. But the problem is that William Nylander brings the strength, power, and explosiveness each time that he's going out on the ice that it feels like we're lacking from Mitch Marner. He has these creative moments and creativity explosions that you see that ends up on your TSN turning points and highlight reels and SC top 10 or whatever for months on end. But the problem is that it kind of feels like he's gone to the point with some of those moves where it has gone so drastically where the risk reward is so high and so far apart that, yes, some of these plays can turn into beautiful plays. But even looking at the penalty that he took where he trips Foligno, that was a terrible, terrible pass decision by him where he turns around and tries to make a no-look behind-the-back pass to nobody that ultimately gets picked off by a Blackhawks player on the Blackhawks penalty kill there. He starts flying out of the zone, and then as Marner gets tangled up with Foligno, trips Foligno, Blackhawks power play. Or Blackhawks 4-4, even it up, which leads to Blackhawks power play. These are frustrating things that it's just like, hey man, make the simple play. That pass does not need to go from along the wall here out into the slot over here. That pass could have easily gone down the boards where you've got any type of support in the corner that can go to you. Because at this point, you've also got a defenseman over here, and then you have the Blackhawks players stuck in between them with a right winger standing right here. Left winger out over here pressuring Marner. And then he decides he's going to take the puck and fire it in around behind his back that gets picked off here. Foligno takes off. He tries to come with him, trips him, ultimately evens things out. Like a waste of a power play right there that was just completely unnecessary to do. I can't understand some of these decisions by him and the risks that are being taken in some of those spots. Very, very unnecessary to me. I struggle to see the benefit in some of them where it's like, hey, just make the simple play. Because even when you see Willie make some of these creative plays, it's not in positions that's going to drastically harm you on the other end. These are some of the problems that I'm seeing with him right now that just becomes overly frustrating. Again, I do want to remind people, I'm seeing some more people pop in the chat, so now that it's filling up, we'll get to some of the questions here. But if you are here right now and you haven't hit that like button, please make sure to hit like here on the stream. Just tap that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications here on the channel so that you get notified every time we go live here, every time videos come out, all that good stuff. So you're not going to want to miss it. Like this video right now. I mean, only half of you that are watching right now have hit like. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. Let's go through some of the chat. Went on a little tangent there to start this stream here tonight. So I do want to address some of the things that are being sent. I don't want to miss out on some of these. Taylor also, let's forget about this one, boys. Glad I found the new channel. Appreciate you finding the new channel. Yeah, I mean, there's the elements of this game you can forget about for sure. It's more just the glaring ones for me that just weren't here tonight, that weren't here just tonight. They were 3 games now consecutively that we've seen this happening in, where it was struggled defensively. Game 1, 2, 3. Okay. 2's a fluke, 3's a pattern. Seeing some not so great defense from this Leafs team. Stella C, do you guys find that the third line isn't doing much? Would you change it up? Here's my thoughts. Part of it is with Fraser Minten here. Fraser Minten has been fine through the first few games. I don't think he's a problem. I just don't really think he's been that effective. And I'm not going to slot any blame on this guy. He was kind of just a standout player in camp. Did really well in preseason, and now he's playing against NHL players on a consistent basis in an NHL lineup. It's a much different feel. It's a much different atmosphere. You're playing in front of a full NHL crowd. There's a lot of different pressures. Your lifestyle kind of changes a little bit as the season gets underway. We didn't really have too high of expectations for him. Remember, this kid can still go back and play junior. Like, he can still go back and play in the WHL this year. I think that you're probably in a spot here with him where you can send him down to do that. I think some changes need to be made with this lineup for sure. First and foremost for me, I'm taking Matthew Nyes off that third line. He's going onto the second line, and he's playing second line left wing alongside Nylander and Tavares. I think that will take Nylander's game and just put it over the top, because the way Matthew Nyes plays, he's not necessarily getting the support that he needs from the other players on that line, whether it was with Yarncroke and Minten there or Domi and Minten there. I don't think he's really getting that help that he should be getting as a guy who's stepping into this league and a guy who actually can probably be impactful in your top 6. Remember how much of an impact that he made when he jumped into the series, first against Tampa, then in the first couple games against Florida, and even kind of throughout the end of the regular season. You throw him into the top 6 there, he's with other really good players who can play alongside of him, read things at his pace, and then he can also help them, because the way that he plays, the way that he impacts the game, he can win battles. He's good at going in, getting in corners. He's great in front of the net. He's good at these nifty little plays, and I just don't think that some of Domi, Yarncroke, Minten can read some of the stuff at the same pace or are understanding some of the stuff that he's doing at the pace that he's doing it, and I think that that's taking away from some of what he's actually able to do, because I think that he's an effective player in the top 6. I'd first put him there. I would move him onto that second line left wing. Second thing for me, let Minten play his 9 games. It's not going to harm this team, so I don't think there's any problem with that. You get him some experience, some more experience in the NHL before you send him back to junior hockey. Finish his time here with the 9 games. You send him back. Nick Robertson, Pontus Holmberg. These are guys, Alex Steves, Bobby McMahon, you can call up and jump into these roles. Slide Max Domi into a third-line center position. Then you move over Calle Yarncroke onto the right wing on that line, and then whoever the other guy is that comes up. I think at this point, you might want to give Robertson a try. It seems like they're not going to trade him. That's not going to come here. So give him a shot in the NHL. He's playing pretty well right now in the AHL, putting up a bunch of points, has a couple goals through his first couple of games. Give him this shot after the 9 games is done with Fraser Minten. He's not going to hurt your cap situation. You can slot him in there. Then you kind of get some attacking, skilled third line that, yeah, people are going to look at and say they're small, they aren't going to be physical, whatever. This is going to be the most skilled third line that we've seen of this Leafs team over the past couple of seasons. Like, remember, there was points in time where David Kampf is sitting there on your third line. Sam Lafferty, Alex Kerfoot. Like, these guys are offensive upgrades over what Alex Kerfoot and those guys were. You're going to get a more skilled third line. Maybe with some of that speed, they can just create havoc, get in people's faces, give you some offensive zone time, and maybe, just maybe, be able to create some type of offense that is actually able to translate to some type of momentum for your team. It doesn't even have to come in the form of goals. It can just push things along for other players on the ice to come up after and generate some opportunities because you've now worn down the other team's defense. You've held them in their zone. You can get offensive zone faceoffs. I think that that's the type of line you might be able to create with that. As far as the fourth line, Noah Gregor, he's been fine for me. Ryan Reeves, we know exactly who he is. He's not going to be that impactful. And then as far as David Kampf goes, like, look, they signed him to this extension. He's supposed to be a defensive centerman. He's got no offensive ability at all, really. He's just going to have to play defensively as a centerman there. Win your draws, kill penalties, and that line, in all honesty, is probably just going to have to be a survival line. Beat some people up. Noah Gregor fights here tonight. Lay hits. Don't be afraid of anything. Set the tone a little bit. And then let your other lines get back out there. Fourth line's fine, but definitely would make some changes to that third line. That's where I would go. So Nyes up to the second line left wing. I go Yarncroke over to the third line right wing. Domi at center. And then you're going to wait your 9 games. So you're going to have 6 more out of him. But then Minten back down to the WHL. Not a knock against him. It's more just the fact that he's got an opportunity to go back to the WHL. You don't need to force him into this lineup. And if you can get somebody who can do the exact same thing as him, just don't burn a year of the ELC. Just send him back. Let him go back there. Give one of these other guys a try. Someone who's performing well in the Marlies right now. And then make them compete for that spot. Make Steves, Robertson, Holmberg, make them fight for an NHL spot in the Marlies. Make them compete for their way up. And then bring one of those guys up and let them in. That's kind of how I would go about things with that. That's where I would change things. Stella also saying, I really want Minten to score or get a point, but maybe like a Holmberg can achieve a bit more. Oh, yeah, sorry. Kind of just touched on some of that. Stella also saying Bertuzzi with Tavares and try Max Domi on first line. I still would just, I don't think moving Domi up is the solution here. I also think that one of the things that he struggles with a little bit is, and Keefe even touched on it, is just kind of like maintaining offensive zone possession. He's good at transitioning the puck. He's good at moving the puck up the ice. He's a pretty good playmaker, but kind of once you're down in the other zone at holding on to it, I don't think is necessarily his strong suit. So you see a little bit of that fall off there. You do see sometimes where things get turned over because he's out there and then things are going back the other way. But going from D to O, he's pretty good there. So, I mean, I would just not be promoting Max Domi at this point. JW, I believe Domi played a shift or 2 with the kids or just caught out there, but it looked good. I really think Yarncroke is the problem here. Yeah, I mean, they moved Domi down at the end of last game. They practiced with him with the kids line. I think it's fine. I just don't think that they're going to be as productive as maybe we'd like them to be. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Taylor also, I wouldn't have found it if it weren't for some random girl on Reddit. Oh, I didn't even know that was going on Reddit. Can someone send the link to that Reddit thing in the chat then? I want to be able to find that of where it's at and where everything moved to, because that would be interesting. I didn't know that there was any type of conversation about it. So Taylor, if you've got that link, send it this way. Rocco Machiocha saying, we got goal lead. We played good. Go Leafs, go. Look, I don't know if I agree that we got goal lead. Soderblom made 34 saves. He had a .971 save percentage. I think more the other way, or the other part of the conversation that just needs to be had here is less so like, oh, we got goal lead, and more, this team didn't play very well defensively. So Chicago was able to capitalize on opportunities because the Leafs gave them prime opportunities. I don't think an .871 save percentage for Wall is maybe the most accurate representation of how he played here tonight. I don't think it necessarily does him justice. It kind of actually makes him out to be worse than what I think was on display here tonight. And yeah, .971 save percentage for Soderblom. They created a lot of opportunities. Couldn't bury on some of the prime ones there. He made some incredible saves. He also just kind of was in position where the Leafs maybe handed a few opportunities to him to make some of these saves. So getting goal lead, partially, he played very, very well. All credit to Soderblom. The inverse of this is that the Leafs defense played very bad. It's not like you can sit here and say, wow, they played really good and they deserve to win this one, but they got goal lead. I think for me, the way that I'm going to look at this one is more from the idea of the Leafs defense was not very good and it let them down. Like deserve to win a meter, I'm seeing right now, as this isn't gospel, but it's something that you can kind of just look at and take away a little bit. Leafs deserve to win a meter here, at least from expected goals opportunities, is 71%. Expected goals, all situations, 4.7 for the Leafs, 2.57 for the Blackhawks. I think that speaks to the type of defensive game that the Leafs had here tonight. Again, I apologize for doing this. I'm going to do it a lot, but if you're here right now and you're watching and you haven't hit the like button, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications here on the channel. I do appreciate everyone following over here and finding this channel, so thank you very much for that. That is very much appreciated, but yeah, help support the show, help other people find it, as I see people are mentioning. Taylor also in the chat mentioning, and then Ecstasy Designs. Bro, I thought you left the platform. Glad you're still here. Nope, we're still here. We just started a new channel. Had to switch over and create my own channel here. So left the other one, starting fresh, but we'll get it back up. We'll get it to a place where it needs to be. So don't worry. Bates88 saying, hey, Zach, good to see you, dude. What happened to Leafs Digest? Some care to explain? Just had to leave the platform. It was time to start my own. Wasn't a fit there anymore. Needed to move on and do my own thing. That's essentially what the situation was. So that's why we're here. Andrew Leonard, I'm lying. I do care if we lose, but 81-1 is still on the table, or 81-1 is still on the table. I mean, yes, it is. 81-1 is still on the table. I don't think anyone thought we were going to go 82-0. And when you sit here and you look at what this Leafs team has done traditionally in the past, this is the most typical Leafs are going to lose this game spot that we see out of them. So it's not like I can sit here and be overly surprised with the result of tonight's game or what went down. It's more just frustrating having to see the same problems that were there through the first two games translate over to this game here tonight. It does suck. Yeah, I don't know. It's this Leafs team, man. This is the most classic. They're going to lose this one spot. You hope that it's going to be different. It never is. It's always the same. It always feels the same. But you know what? At the end of the day,
having the time of his life.
Still having the time of our lives. And I did see Gord found the channel, so I'm excited about that. We'll get Gord's Corner in the next little while here, I'm sure. I do also want to just take this time to let people know, this Thursday we will do a post-game stream. Saturday will not be able to. One of our friends will be playing against the Marlies here in Toronto. So all of our friends will be attending that game. There is overlap between the Marlies game and the Leafs game. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to cross over and get that. It's a cool opportunity to go and see one of our friends play right here in our own backyard. So I will be taking advantage of that. But I will let people know that there will be a recap video that will come out on Sunday of that Saturday night game. So don't worry, you will still get a recap and my thoughts on the game. It's just, it's not going to be, it's not fair for me to not have watched the game and come on and try to break down the game, having not really seen the whole thing. So I will see parts of it. I will see the post game and I will watch back on Sunday, and then we'll do a recap video at some point on Sunday, but it's just not going to be immediately after the game on Sunday. So do apologize there. But Thursday, we will be back here for sure. Again, just want to remind people, if you do want to call into the show here tonight, please send me a message. I'll send over a link, and you can call in. We'll continue to do call-ins over the next little while, but yes, definitely. So continuing to go through the chat here. Oh, also Taylor saying with thread where someone asked for a Good Leafs podcast, mentioned the old channel, but said it wasn't the same. I see. Thread is now closed. Okay, fair enough. It is what it is, but thank you. I'm glad that you found it. I'm glad that you're able to find us here. And hopefully we can continue to put out more good content here on the Third Man In channel. But spread the word. Let people know we're here. If you see that stuff out on Leafs, Reddits, Twitters, or anything like that, looking for Leafs podcasts, Leafs shows, let them know. Come on over here. Things have moved over. No longer on the old channel. We are into here. So, yeah, make sure to spread the word around. More things in the chat here that we'll get into. JW, I'd take Willie over Marner any day. I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago. Willie looked elite tonight when he turns it on. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that I'm looking at with this. Marner's current contract is more expensive than what Nylander's next contract will be, which likely means that Marner's next contract will be even more expensive than what Nylander's next contract will be as well. Consider between the two, the fact that it's going to eat up the cap space, it's going to eat up the cap percentage. Which of those guys are you sitting here saying you'd rather have on your team for the next little while if you had to choose between them and open up some type of space? For me right now, I would rather have the little bit of inconsistency in William Nylander's game that he has when he has such explosive offensive upside and what he can bring alongside John Tavares there, and being a guy who can actually drive that second line, then having to maybe overpay Mitch Marner a little bit into that position where you're going to now eat away at it when you're sitting here looking at this Leafs defense, just sitting here knowing it needs to improve and you don't have necessarily the money to do so. I think that the entire thing about the Leafs being pinned up against the cap is a little bit overblown. I mean, like, look at the Senators. They sat there and mocked the Leafs about their cap situation for so long, and now they can't even sign a third-line center to $2 million because they mismanaged the cap completely. There's other teams in much worse positions. It's more just that this Leafs team isn't able to go out and sign that big game-changing defenseman, and I think that that's something that they need. I think Mitch Marner is obviously an incredible player. If you can get that guy who can be a massive difference maker on the defensive end, I feel like that's going to be more valuable to this team in the long run. I feel like that's something that could kind of propel you and push you over the edge. I don't want to have to sit here game 3 and be on the trade Marner train. I'm not going to be the guy who's going to be stuck here right now being radioed by this, and at the end of the season people are going to be like, remember when people said trade Marner? I'm not saying that right now. More just like sitting here thinking between those two players, knowing Willie has to come up and knowing that what this team needs is an upgraded defense, and you're lacking that. Kind of the way to get to that point where you're going to improve on the defense is by dropping one of Nylander or Marner kind of thing. That's the thought process. That's what's going into me having to say this right now. Andrew Leonard, you think Marner would have more fire under his ass to make something happen, considering he didn't get the season he wanted last year? I mean, yeah, you think it's not necessarily like, oh, lack of production here. I mean, you see Matthews come out flying. You see Willie come out flying. Like, these guys came out offensively prepared. They came out hungry from that standpoint. It's not even necessarily looking at him going, oh, you're not doing things offensively. It's just the same decisions that you see him make that you kind of go, oh, well, he's just learning in year one. And then it's like, okay, well, it's year two, so he's still learning a little bit. 3, 4. Okay, now we're in year 7. Some of these things need to be cleaned up. There's nothing wrong with being creative and taking chances, but some of these are just really, really poor decisions. There's bad decision making that goes into some of these that are costing the Leafs. And the one that's just really abundantly clear here tonight is the one where he tries to make that backhand, or not backhand, but no look behind the back pass at the blue line that gets picked off, which ultimately ends up turning into him tripping Foligno and negating the power play going to 4-on-4. Like, that's just a bad decision. That decision right there could be pucked down the wall to Nylander in the corner or JT in the corner. That leads to more offensive zone time, regroup, and you maintain the power play. Instead, now you sit there and you're now on a 4-on-4, which turns into a penalty kill. These are some of these poor decisions that we're talking about that just need to be eliminated and cleaned up from the game. Continue to read chat here. I guess that's kind of it for questions here. But if you do want to, if you do enjoy the show, please, again, make sure to like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. We'll get into some more stuff here. We are about 45 minutes in. So for those who know, normally with the when the chat is going, we do get into a lot of the questions that go on here, and these streams can go up a lot longer, as well as taking calls. We do like to take calls from people, so if you do want to take calls, you can add me on Discord. You can follow me on Twitter. I'll put my profile in there for people to follow me. If you do want on the chat, you can send me a message on there if you do want to call in. More than happy to take callers and hear people's thoughts and have discussion over some of these things. So very, very happy to do that. But that being said, let's get into some of the different topics for tonight, some of the different segments. First and foremost, let's get to the play of the game. Tonight's play of the game seems very simple for me. I think that this one is going to go to the only goal of the game, and it's more so because of the move that was made leading up to the goal by William Nylander, where he crosses the line, pulls the puck past, makes a nice move at the blue line to get past the defender, and then makes a great read once he gets inside. I mean, once Nylander gets across the blue line, you do see him in that spot there where he does go, pulls the puck past the defenseman here out at the blue line, and then as he goes, he starts to just drive out wide. He's got, or I guess it was forward in this spot, but as he's got the forward that he pulls the puck past at the blue line, he's got another defender in behind him. It pushes this defender backwards a little bit, having to kind of match him as he's going to be coming in here, and then he's got JT as he notices out on the other side, kind of coming in and just slowly sneaking in and across. So this pushes this defender back into the spot where he starts to slide into here. Then the other defender coming across here is trying to follow along with JT. But what Nylander does is as he continues to push across, it creates confusion between the righty and the lefty there, where they're kind of wondering who's going to take Nylander as he crosses over them in the middle of the zone. What this ends up doing is putting this right D in a position where he starts to stop here. The left D is coming across a little bit to play Nylander, but also trying to keep in mind that he's got Tavares, now trying to cover two guys at the same time. As he does so, JT continues across this way. Nylander with just a perfect little drop pass right here, and then Tavares, is able to get this shot through and pick top corner off. This is This is the play of the game because this is just a very, very intelligent play by William Nylander. First and foremost, gaining the line, which was a beautiful play, kind of coming in and then going out and around the defender up top here, making a nice move that way. And then as he comes in and just continues to drive across this way, it just creates confusion between these two defenders out here, which ultimately leads to JT being able to be wide open right here in the slot in a prime position to get a shot off, picking off that corner. Like, this is play of the game for me, very easily. It starts with a highlight reel move there from William Nylander at the blue line. And again, I talk about some of these risks where you say, hey, yes, you're going to take a risk every now and then. But for me, William Nylander making that move there is less so of a risk than what Mitch Marner did at the point where he's got two guys, one guy on him and one guy in between him and the defender on the other side of the ice that he's trying to make a pass to, where it ultimately gets picked off, because that could have been a breakaway for Foligno if he doesn't trip him. So maybe you're going to sit here and say, oh, well, that's a good play because he tripped him and it doesn't allow the breakaway. But it's like, there was no need for that in the first place. There was just no need for that. And Nylander makes that play at the blue line. He has backup. That's the thing, is that he's got two defenders behind him, and he had a third forward there to help him along the side of the wall who could, if that puck gets turned over, step back and help. Now, obviously, you're going to look at this one and say, okay, yes, the result was good. This could have gone poorly. I do understand that, especially if a fast break turns the other way. But there is support there. Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't, but there was support there to help him. He makes a great play, cuts across, just creates that confusion between the two defenders where the guy that's kind of coming in with him is like, where do I go here? You're cutting across to the other side. I have to hand you off to my defense partner. I'm going to stay here, which leaves Willie a little bit of room. And then as he goes, now that his defender was flat-footed, JT can come across, fill into that gap, takes the pass, in stride. Great shot there. That is my play of the game. Let me know in the chat your play of the game. I'm happy to shout these out, so make sure you fire those in. I see some chat comments in the chat. I see a bunch of new people coming in here. 30 career high on the Third Man In channel, I think. 30 concurrent viewers, so shout out to everyone who's watching right now. Hit the like button while you're here. There's only a third of you who have hit the like button while watching right now, so get that up. But Akuma's Deception saying Willie is more dynamic and physically more talented than Marner, but Marner's hockey IQ bridges the gap. They're both great in their own way. Hopefully, Tree can keep Matthews, Willie, and Marner. Well, as for the last statement, he's got Matthews locked in, so good there. Put out a video earlier today on this channel covering that. Willie and Marner in terms of the gap. Marner obviously much more defensively responsible. I just think that there's a big you have that big risk of him making some of those plays, as I mentioned. You have to kind of deal with them, but at the same time, it's like where you have to deal with Nylander, where he can kind of just go to sleep at certain periods of time. There's pros and cons to each player. My thing is more just like Nylander's going to come in at the cheaper contract. Personally, as of right now, Marner just bugs me a little bit with some of the stuff that goes on. It feels like I've been seeing it for years now, where it's like the same things over and over and over again. Whereas on the flip side, it feels like Nylander has kind of fixed or built on some of the things that he's had and have eliminated some of the stuff from his game. It just feels like Marner's like improved on some of the things he was already really good at and just not really fixed up some of the other areas, if that makes sense. So that's kind of where I look at Marner. I'm like, it's the head scratcher where it's like, take some of that out of your game. And I think people would love it a whole lot more. Love him maybe a whole lot more. Akuma's Deception also saying, this was a trap game, on to the next one. It's a long season. I mean, yes, I understand the whole, hey, this is a trap game thing. It happens, but it's also like I see Arnav saying tough loss. Leafs tired though. Chicago has now played more games. They also haven't been at home. The Leafs have been sitting at home throughout this entire stretch here. They played Wednesday, they play Saturday, you play Monday. The entire time has been at home. Chicago played Tuesday, Wednesday on the road. They played Saturday on the road, and then they play here tonight on Monday on the road. Like these guys, Pittsburgh, Boston, Montreal, Toronto. You play 3 original 6 teams. All 4 of these are on the road through this stretch. Like, that's a tired team, and they're not good. It is what that is who the Chicago Blackhawks are. They're not expecting to even make playoffs this year. So for me, it's just it should be a different team. It should be a different season, a different outlook, a different feel. It's not really that they didn't bring the energy here tonight. I'm not going to sit here and say that. It's just they just aren't. They lack defensively. They struggle defensively, and that showed. And you should be able to at least clean that up against this Blackhawks team. And I know that these guys are going to have things to work on. They're going to have video to look over. This isn't one where you sit here and say, throw away the tape, move on. This is like, I mean, if they're sitting there saying throw away the tape and move on, there's other problems involved here. Like, there is coaching problems going on here. This should be an evaluate what the hell went wrong here tonight, because there were some grave mistakes that led to Chicago goals that need to be broken down, need to be addressed, and need to be fixed before you can go any further. Because if that's the way you're going to play defense, or you expect to play defense on a Stanley Cup run, you are gravely mistaken. Arnav saying, Zack pulling up the drawing board, break it down. Love it. Kuma's Deception, you don't get this kind of content. Zack's played the games, he's talking about. I try to know what I'm talking about. Try to watch as much hockey as possible and surround myself with other people who watch and understand the game as well. So I do appreciate that. Do appreciate the support. I try to bring everything that I can to the channel. And yes, that is something that we will continue to do here, is break out the whiteboard. I love the whiteboard. Once I figured out that we could do that last year, the whiteboard is my favorite feature here on this channel. You bring that out, get that up on the screen, break down exactly what I'm talking about. Because I can sit here and say things to people all that I want, but I'm visual as well. Sometimes I need to even see what I'm talking about, and it helps other people if they can see what I'm talking about too. So bringing up the whiteboard is definitely one of my favorite things here on this channel. Akuma's Deception. I think Marner's peaked, at least offensively, while Nylander still has some room to grow. Chicago is better than people give them credit for. They beat us, Pens, and a tough game versus Bruins. I mean, yeah, they're going to be a pesky team. It's more just the idea that, like, they're not a playoff team. There's not any expectation. I don't think there's any room for them to get there within the West right now. I just don't see them making that jump this season unless they go out and they just go trade for some guys. But I think that would almost be a mistake, where it's like, oh, you kind of reached a little bit too early, kind of like what we've seen Vancouver do in the past couple of, well, I was going to say years, but almost like decade now, where it's like, oh, we're done the rebuild, get going, and then they mess it up and it sets them back. You don't want to do that if you're Chicago. Take your time, let Bedard build. And yeah, I see Arna saying they got Bedard, though. Everyone is more energized, and the Hawks are hungry to improve. Yeah, I get it, but the Leafs should be energized. They should have something to prove. They should be bringing something every time that they step out on the ice. So it's not really an excuse from that standpoint. And then the other thing as well, I see Kuma's Deception I do want to respond to is Marner's peaked, at least offensively. Nylander still has some room to grow. Okay, this is an interesting comment, and the reason is maybe not what people think I would say. And trying to think of the way to word it properly without coming across as... Okay. More the thought on this would be, the reason I think Nylander has that room to grow and develop and become a more dominant player is because of his physical strength on and off the puck. You see how dominant Matthews is when it comes to winning battles, taking pucks away, creating things, opening up his own space, that aspect, as well as not being able to be pushed off the puck so easily. It feels like over the last 3.5 seasons, William Nylander has really started to add those elements to his game, where he has become a lot stronger, faster, tougher to play against. Not saying he's tough, but tougher to play against in regards to, you're not just going to beat him easily. He's not some soft, skilled player anymore. He's a strong, skilled player. Not tough, but strong player to play against, where you really have to dig in to win these battles against him. When I think where you could be going with this in regards to Mitch Marner is just that, again, like, that strength never felt like it really built into his game over the last little while. It feels like it jumped from maybe years 1 to 2 to 3, and then it seems like it's kind of like plateaued, that strength, over the last little while. It's just never really built up there. The shot never really continued to develop the same way that Nylander's did, Matthews did, etc., adding these other tools to their bag. So I can understand what you're saying there. Now, in terms of peaked offensively, I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think that there's still a lot more that we're going to see out of him, but it's more just like he's going to only build on the things that he already has and not add new things to his game, like maybe what you're saying with Nylander has with that strength that he's added that allows him to do all these other things. Even think about the way he drives the net and is able to pull pucks around guys and win battles. He couldn't do those in his first couple of years with this Leafs team. Now he can. Now they've been added to his game. It's a much, much different feeling. Much different feeling watching him play every time, especially he touches the puck. Yeah, Narnav saying Leafs defense is bad for sure. Yeah, final thing there. Let's go. Final thing here before we wrap up the show here tonight.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We got to handle these animations. There's the delay on them each time. I don't understand what's going on with that, but we'll get that sorted out as we go further. Grade of the game. Fire your grades of the game in the chat. Interested to see them. I'm going to go with like a C- on tonight's game. Look, you created a lot of offensive opportunities. I think Matthews could have had a couple. Nylander probably could have had more. JT could have had another one. You didn't bury. You kind of need to in some of these spots against a not very good team. Joseph All, I think, was fine, but he also walks away from this one with a below 900 save percentage. He allows for 3 goals here tonight. Like, not the greatest game statistically for him. I don't think this is anything for him to hang his head over, but it's not something he's going to walk away and be proud of. Now, you've struggled a little bit with Samsonov in the first 2 games. He was a little bit shaky. Your defense is now consistently being bad for 3 games. You had an opportunity here against Chicago tonight to come out in a game where all eyes were going to be on you. Connor Bedard playing in the spotlight game against the Toronto Maple Leafs in Toronto, and you crapped the bed. It didn't come here tonight. I don't think that they played poorly. I think the defense was not very good. I think effort was there, which is a different feeling than we've had in years past, where you walk away from this one going, man, they didn't show up to play. And I mean, Sheldon Keefe here saying, I just see this report. Sheldon Keefe calls his best players really, really careless with the puck in the first period. I mean, I think that that's a way to almost call out Marner more than it is anything else here, because I think Marner was not very good to start that game, and that play that I was talking about was in the first period. So struggles all around from the Leafs here tonight, but you move on. You got more games coming up here, so 79 more games to play. You get through these. We just keep moving forward. I'm just trying to see what time the game is, the next game that they play, because all these games feel like they're being played at different times this year. Thursday against the Florida Panthers, 7 p.m. at Florida. So now this team goes on the road. You see what they can bring. I'm seeing a lot of C, C-, B-, C. So everyone's kind of in the same boat there. C- for me here tonight. Before we wrap this one up, if you did enjoy the stream, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications here on this channel. More videos coming out, more live streams just like this one. You don't want to miss it. Spread the word. Let other people know that we're here. We're talking about the Leafs, doing post-game shows, doing video breakdowns, all that kind of stuff, whiteboards, all the good stuff up on the screens. But to everyone who tuned in here tonight, I do greatly appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you guys Thursday after the game against the Florida Panthers at 7 p.m.